We're live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra and Kumasi. We're on Love 99.5 FM affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We're on Radio Max in Takrade, Lolonyo FM in Hohoi, Kekeli FM in Ho, Radio Justice in Tamale, and Radio Freed in Nandom. We're on Twitter Spaces, we're on Facebook, we're on myjoyonline.com. The Midday News is sponsored by Duraplast Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplast goes, water flows. This afternoon, High Court restrains Office of Special Prosecutor from arresting Secretary of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Bisu. But the OSP says it does not need a warrant to effect an arrest. We have their response. Also, NDC minority wants the OSP to arrest Gabia Sariochiridako, Lord Kome, and others implicated in the IMCI Galamsey report.
It must go beyond the arrest of Professor Frimpong Boateng. It should go wider by ensuring the arrest of government appointees, which includes Mr. Gabi Ochiridako, the president's cousin, the director of operations, Mr. Lord Kome.
We have the details. Also, President Akufo-Addo outlines 8-point agenda to revamp the ailing economy, with state-sponsored incentives to encourage commercial farming in the country.
Government is facilitating the availability of suitable and well-prepared land, power supply, irrigated water, some farming equipment and much-needed infrastructure, grain processing.
We'll get to explore the active involvement of the military in this. Also, Bank of Ghana partners security agencies to crack down on more than 90 unlicensed entities granting loans to customers through electronic platforms with interest rates more than 100%.
The security agencies responsible for arrest, we are working with it, and the process is ongoing.
We have sports.
Is the Ghana Premier League dominance of Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko over? Well, some important voices in Ghana football think so. And
romance fraud cases increases by 100%, with victims losing over 2 million cedis in the first half of this year.
But last year, 2020, we had 13 for the entire year. This year, let's say middle of the year, June, we are already at 25. So that's essentially a 100% increase.
The Cybersecurity Authority will give us details of that and more here on the Midday News. I am Emefa Apawu. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Please stay on for details. Thanks for choosing us. In our very first story for this afternoon, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been barred from effecting any warrant allowing it to arrest the Secretary of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Bisu. The High Court, presided by Justice Nicholas Abudakbi, has also asked the OSP not to apply for a further warrant of arrest until the case filed by Mr. Bisu is determined. The OSP has for more than 2 weeks been trying to interrogate Mr. Bisu for his role on the Anti-Galamsey Committee. The office has declared him wanted, but he is yet to show up despite assuring he would do so. My colleague Joseph Akable has just returned from court. He'll give us a blow-by-blow account of happenings in court. So, Joseph, let's talk about this particular application by the lawyers for Mr. Bisu and the orders issued by the court.
And so it has to do with some of the issues that they've already raised in the public domain, making the point that they want a copy of the petition that gave rise to the investigation that was undertaken by the Office of Special Prosecutor. We know that they have actually applied at the High Court, asking that the OSP to be compelled to make available that particular motion. And so Naneje, who are lead counsel for Mr. Bisu, told the court that as far as they do not have the basis for the investigation, for which reason they had been invited, it meant that the OSP was acting in a manner which is unfair, unreasonable, and unlawful. He also made the point that he had been reliably informed that sometime on or around the 7th of June 2023, the OSP had applied to the court and had been granted an arrest warrant allowing him to arrest Charles Bisu. And so he makes the point that this was despite the fact that there were pending motions he had filed against the Office of Special Prosecutor. And so he urged the court to grant the request. There was also a comment he made about the notice that was published by the Office of Special Prosecutor. He says the notice is illegal and is a product of an arrest warrant procured contrary to law. And so he urged the court to also halt or grant an order directing the OSP from desisting from circulating or publishing such a notice. And so in terms of the orders that the court issued, The first is that the warrant should not be executed, and so the OSP is barred from executing the arrest warrant it purports to have procured. Again, is barred from applying for further arrest warrant pending the determination of the substantive matter, and finally publishing notices purporting the applicant to be wanted pending the determination of the substantive matter.
And the lawyers for the OSP in court, what arguments did they advance?
They were actually not in court. The reason being that this is an ex parte application, which means once lawyers for Mr. Bisu filed the documents in court, the lawyers for the OSP were not even served. And so what it also means is that the order that has been granted is to last for just 10 days. And so after 10 days, unless they repeat the application on notice, i.e. bringing it to the attention of the OSP for them to respond, it will mean that after 10 days, all these orders that we've talked about will not be in effect anymore.
Was the Charles Bisu himself in court today?
No, he wasn't present.
Okay, so earlier they had mentioned that they were going to file a contempt against the OSP. Did that come up?
They've not initiated that process yet. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my colleague Joseph Akable returning from court. But we've been hearing from the OSP in the last few minutes. Also on this latest development, Elton Brobe joins me in studio. What exactly is the OSP's response to this High Court order?
Well, they are saying that it is not true that they've gone to court to procure an arrest warrant. They've not done so. What they are also saying is that the OSP does not need an arrest warrant to arrest a person they reasonably believe to have committed an offense, and that should BCO report and the decision is that he should be arrested, he will be arrested. Even if he's seen in town, he will be arrested. They are also saying that a person published as wanted simply means he has refused, ignored, and neglected to attend to the sermon of an investigative body. And according to the OSC, when such a person is outside Ghana, Interpol would rather be alerted. But if the person is in Ghana, then there's no need for Interpol to come into this matter. When such a person reports, the wanted notice will be revoked. But according to them, they've not gone to court. They have the power as an investigative body to effect an arrest, and they will do so anytime they come into contact with Mr. Charles Bisu.
Okay, and I'm sure you've been checking the website of the OSP, and that wanted notice is still there.
Charles Bisu is still a wanted man.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's Elton Brobe with details from the Office of the Special Prosecutor in spite of that court order that's just coming in. Well, the minority in Parliament, meanwhile, says the Special Prosecutor, Kisie Jabing, must go after the big Galamsey names and stop harassing persons like Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, the former chair of the now-defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. We know was arrested by the OSP and granted bail, whilst the former Secretary, Charles Bisu, has been declared a wanted man. While speaking to journalists in Parliament, ranking member on the Lands and Forestry Committee, Dr. Rashid Pelpo, called for the immediate arrest of cousin of the President, Gabi Asare-Otiri-Darko, and directors of operation at the presidency, Lord Kome, who were all mentioned in Professor Frimpong Boateng's Galamsey report.
We believe that if government wants to demonstrate seriousness in the fight against Galamsey, it must go beyond the arrest of Professor Frimpong Boateng. It should go wider by ensuring the arrest of government and Jubilee appointees at the heart of government, which includes Mr. Gabi Otiri-Darko, the President's cousin, the Director of Operations, Mr. Lord Kome, including Honorable Joseph Albert Kwam, who have all been cited by the committee. It is our opinion that a public inquiry on the committee reports and damage to our forest reserves is necessary, especially with the now wider destruction of our lands and rivers by Galamsey operators.
Well, still in Parliament, the minority say government must put before them a plan to replace textbooks with laptops in schools. The plan announced by the Vice President will cost the taxpayer 1.5 billion cedis, but the minority say details about the plan is scanty. According to Minority Leader Dr. Kaisel Atoforsen, who was contributing to the debate on approval of Get Fund allocation formula, government must explain to Parliament the procurement processes and other details surrounding that particular project. Correspondent Kweku Asante joins us on the line with more from Parliament. So what exactly are the concerns here, Kweku?
The minority says that government did not budget for this project, and once the Vice President went to town and made that promise, government has shifted this blame to Get Fund, and Get Fund is expected to fund it. So yesterday, when the House considered a Get Fund allocation formula, it was seen that about 800 million cedis has been allocated from Get Fund to fund this project. The minority says there's no policy underpinning to this, and that they need details before they can give approval for this money to be spent.
Members expressed the need for government to present to this House a policy on government distribution of laptops to be used as a way to replace textbooks. The Speaker, this is particularly important because members will need to at least apprise ourselves with government drive as to the replacement of the laptops. Most particularly, that there is not every school that will have access to electricity. The Speaker, we were told that laptops will cost approximately 1.5 billion cedis. And now the formula is allocating 740 million Ghana cedis.
Well, Kweku, just before you take leave of us, what else is expected to happen in Parliament today?
So the Works and Housing Committee of Parliament is not really excited about some abandoned state housing company affordable housing projects. They say that they expect those projects to be completed, despite state housing insisting that these projects were started under the erstwhile John Mahama government and some corruption so-called activities happened. And because of that, they want to do some due diligence. And so they are going to tour some of those facilities. We also expect that this laptop controversy will linger on a little bit on the floor of Parliament as the minority still demand answers.
That's the Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante. Now, government is undertaking perhaps the biggest incentives to drive interest in commercial agriculture with the ultimate aim of revamping the ailing economy. Under the novel Agricultural Focus Economic Enclave, government is making available suitable lands fitted with power supply, irrigation, warehousing, and other inputs to enable stress-free farming across the country. To address bureaucracy, government has tasked the Millennium Development Authority to implement this particular agenda. We'll hear more on the program, but first listen to President's 8-point agenda to address shortfalls in the economy.
The main elements of this program are A, supporting commercial farming and attracting educated youth into commercial farming. B, building the country's light manufacturing sector. C, developing engineering, machine tools, and ICT digital economy industries. D, fast-tracking digitalization. E, developing Ghana's housing and construction industry. F, establishing Ghana as a regional hub. G, reviewing and optimizing the implementation of government flagships and key programs. And H, creating jobs for young people and expanding opportunities to the vulnerable in society, including physically challenged persons.
Well, the President also provides some fine details on the novel Agricultural Focus Economic Enclave.
I'm pleased to mention that under this novel EEP, government is facilitating the availability of suitable and well-prepared land, fitted with farm roads, power supply, irrigated water, some farming equipment, and much-needed infrastructure for trainee farmers' accommodation, grain processing, input, and equipment storage and warehousing. The involvement of the 48th Engineer Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces in land preparation and development.
President Akufo-Addo there. Well, clearly this is modelled on the State Farms policy implemented in 1962, and despite the huge potential in the agricultural sector, it has yet to be fully exploited. So will this particular program work? Joining us to explore this new initiative by the President is the Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association, Charles Nyaba. We are grateful for your time here on the Midday News. This should be good news for you and the sector, but really, do we know how this will work?
Good afternoon. And then thanks so much for the opportunity. Yeah, so if you look at the problems that we are currently facing, and then the kind of activities that they plan to implement under the Economic Enclave project, I think it's good. We have limited extension, we have limited irrigation facilities, we have poor feeder road network. But as I always said, poor consultation of stakeholders led to poor implementation of several projects in Ghana. Typical example is One Village, One Dam. Now, if you look at Ghana, our agricultural landscape, smallholder farmers supply 80% of the food we eat in this country. They are willing to take all the risks in terms of weather failure and what have you. But anytime we are coming out with programs, we do not consider their role and their importance in those projects. You are looking for 20,000 hectares of land within a community for this project. What happened to the existing farmers in those areas? Which part of Ghana will you go and see 20,000 acres of land lying free for you to go there and develop the land, put electricity, put all those things for farmers to go in and cultivate? So what is likely to do is for landowners and chiefs to displace farmers who are already farming in those lands, and then we clear them and develop for the economic entry program. So I'm thinking that we are going to create a problem by trying to solve another problem.
So further consultation, you say, will be the way to go?
Yes, that's what we should do. Because in the first place, I'm just imagining which part of Ghana we are going to get 20,000 acres of land lying down for this project that we plan to do.
Okay, we'll leave it here for now and explore it much later. That's the Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association, Charles Nyaba. There now, the Bank of Ghana is partnering security agencies to crack down on more than 90 unlicensed entities granting loans to customers through electronic platforms. Operation of unlicensed financial companies has been a major challenge in the last few years, with investors sometimes losing huge sums of money. The BOG's FinTech and Innovation Office is concerned about how online platforms have become the new means such companies transact business.
The laws of this country requires that before an entity puts itself out as a credit provider, it has to be licensed by the Bank of Ghana.
Sure.
The reason is that in the provision of credit, there are a number of risks that come up, and it is important that the regulator helps to mitigate that risk. Let me look at it from the consumer perspective. The entities that are licensed by Bank of Ghana adhere to strict consumer protection requirements, as you will be aware. Anytime that a consumer encounters problems with the service provider, there are mechanisms for redress.
Now, if you've been able to identify some of them, why haven't you arrested them?
The security agencies responsible for arrest, we are working with it, and the process is ongoing. And we do not want to put out information out there which may undermine their efforts in this direction.
Okay. Final question. So, if you're looking at the interest rates charged, now, these are rates charged on the borrower. If the borrower is not complaining, why your concern?
The borrower's complaint could be manifested in different ways. What we have seen is that there are a number of borrowers who, because of the higher interest rates, have not been able to repay their loans.
That's Clarence Blay. He's in charge of FinTech and Innovation Office at the Bank of Ghana. Let's run through some of these entities that the BOG has concerns about. Mamiesi Nyamiche Thompson joins me in studio. Let's go through them, Mamiesi.
And Emefa, there are quite a number of them. I'll just go through a few of them. They have Flash Cash, Accra, GH Lending, MO Loan, Rapid CD, 100 CD, that is 100 CD. CD Help, Mass CD Consult, CD Boom, Cash Loan Pro, Air Cash, Aquaba Payment, For Credit, Ghana Lending, Acon Credit, Ghana Loan, that is GANA Loan, and a host of others.
Okay, thank you very much, Mamiesi. And just before we head out to the break, we've been talking about the High Court restraining the Office of the Special Prosecutor from arresting Secretary of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Bisu. My colleague Elton Broby joined me earlier with some details from what we're learning from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Now there is an official notice from the OSP. Elton, what does it say?
So they are saying that the general public is advised that in the exercise of its police powers, the Office of the Special Prosecutor can arrest without a warrant any person it reasonably suspect of having committed corruption or corruption-related offences.
Okay, and that takes us on a quick break. When we return, we have sport. Remember, the Midday News is proudly sponsored by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. And then later, romance fraud cases increased by 100%, with victims losing over 2 million cedis in the first half of this year.
But last year, 2020, we had 13 for the entire year. This year, let's say middle of the year, June, we are already at 25. So that's essentially a 100% increase.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Midday News and what a sport is about to be. And Mubarak is here with some big man.
Yep.
Let's go through it.
Yeah, and it's Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko who have won 45 league titles between them. Now, since 2015, they've won a combined 2. Now, Tony Oben is the GFA Executive Council member, and he says their era has come to an end.
The day of the dominance of these clubs are over. And this is a reflection of football globally. I mean, who ever thought that Saudi Arabia would beat Argentina and many other surprises that are coming up in football. So generally, we must accept that there's a certain trend that is leading to those unsung clubs coming up, because this time around they have the right clues and they are using the right approach.
So yeah, Gary Al Smith joins me in studio for a brief discussion. Now, Gary, do you agree with the assertion of Tony Oben?
Well, it's tempting but it's happened before. Diana Stars were very good. We saw other teams have fleetingly good years, 2-3 years, and then Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko came back. But what is happening, the trends show that Hearts recruitment and Kotoko's recruitment is increasingly getting more difficult, because players are moving to clubs not for their name alone, but for money. And Hearts and Kotoko these days don't seem to be able to pull that amount of money. And you can see that even in the last 4 editions of what many consider Ghana's flagship football awards, the Ghana Football Awards, the numbers of awards that Asante Kotoko and Hearts of Oak have been winning keeps dwindling. Last season, Kotoko basically swept everything that was on offer, including their CEO. But this year, they've barely had any nominations, and you can tell from that. As for Hearts of Oak, they are barely there as well. And so the awards will be coming off next week.
Ghana Football Awards.
Ghana Football Awards will be coming off next week. And unfortunately for Hearts and Kotoko fans, you will not be too represented.
That's about it here for sports. Back to you, Emefa.
Thank you very much. And let's talk about romance fraud. And the Cybersecurity Authority has recorded a 100% increase in the fraud in just 6 months. From January to June this year, 25 persons were duped about 2.5 million CDs at the cost for falling in love. According to the Cybersecurity Authority, this is a big jump in the cases reported in 2022. Only 13 cases were recorded that year. But the scammers aren't slowing down on getting more people tricked. My colleague, Mamie Sinyameche Thompson, she has not been tricked and will not be. She joins me in studio with more. Let's break down the numbers.
Fortunately, and so according to the Cybersecurity Authority, 18 males were tricked out of the 25, and 7 were female. So mostly males are the victims. And this number comes from January of this year to June 12th. So that means that the numbers are changing. There could be more coming in as the year progresses. But as of last year, only 13 cases were recorded.
Well, stay safe. Now, the lead of the Computer Emergency Response Team at the CSA, Stephen Kuju, says Ghanaians must be vigilant and report suspicious characters who hit them up online.
What happens to everything is that they think they're in love with somebody, but then eventually what they end up doing is they lose valuables, they lose money, or they lose property or investments to these people. We can't say we have specific evidence, but definitely the Cybersecurity Authority has been very busy increasing its efforts around creating awareness. So it is likely also a contributory factor that people now know and can report. It's also just possible that people are experiencing more of this. We get reports from Ghanaians that are local. We also get reports from Ghanaians that are outside. We've also had a handful of cases where they are actually foreigners that have experienced it from people they think are Ghanaians.
Let's head to Takrady now. And the Park Grant Runabout is named after one of Ghana's founding fathers, George Park Grant, a timber merchant from Western Region who paid for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to travel down to Ghana from abroad to lead Ghana's fight to independence. Today, a place that bears his name has been abandoned by the government, and deeper potholes have taken over the area, causing huge traffic in rush hours in Takrady. Samuel Kojo traveled to Takrady as always and has come through with this report.
Potholes have been developed in the southern part of Runabout and northern part of Runabout being developed. It's a serious thing that we ought to look at. Unfortunately, we can't tie the reason why we can't do this route to Russian and Ukraine war and COVID.
That's Charles Mintaba, a social commentator in the Western region, lamenting how deplorable the Pargrant roundabout is currently. The Pargrant roundabout is a very critical route in the Sekondi Takoradi metropolis. The sad story, however, is that the stretch is riddled with potholes.
The Pargrant roundabout here in the Sekondi Takoradi metropolis, named after one of Ghana's founding fathers, George Pargrant. How do we as a country intend to honor his memory? What we've decided to do is to honor him with potholes. Several potholes surround this roundabout.
Charles Mintaba is not happy.
So let's assume that Pargrant was seated here alive. Will we allow this road to deteriorate to this state?
Driver John supplies mineral water in the metropolis.
We have complained
about the potholes several times, but nothing is done about it. If some of my load had not been bought, all of it would have poured onto the road now.
That's the situation in Pargrant in Takoradi. We are told there are more potholes there than buildings. Now, former Commissioner of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Kojo Afarijan, has cautioned against any form of rush to introduce technology into Ghana's election process. Dr. Afarijan warns that although the use of technology has become convenient in electoral processes globally, it could spell doom for Ghana's election if we do not manage it properly. He spoke a while ago at the University of Ghana's roundtable discussion, Election Technology and the Future of Election in Ghana. We can listen to him.
In fact, it was not until I got into elections and we began to introduce technology into our work that I realized that indeed making haste slowly has useful meaning.
Well, that's Kojo Afarijan, the former Electoral Commission boss. While the Electoral Commission has meanwhile concluded the balloting for the 4 candidates contesting the Asin North by-election: James Jachekwesing of the NDC, Charles Opoku of the NPP, Sefano Benes Enyonam of the LPG, and Abedu Agatha as independent candidates are the 4 candidates contesting. Now, following the balloting, the NPP's Charles Opoku is at the top, followed by LPG's Sefano Benes Enyonam. The NDC's James Jachekwesing is in 3rd position, followed by the independent candidates. Well, the by-election is set for June 27, and your election headquarters has it all covered. And barely 3 months after Joy News aired the One District Some Factories Hotline documentary, the government has started rolling out interventions aimed at resolving the challenges bedeviling the policy. One of the factories that was badly affected was the APEP Cylinder Manufacturing Company Limited, located at Ewutu Brekusu. My colleague Richard Kujunyako has more.
And so now, if you come to our factory, boss, you'll be shocked. We are now getting to almost close to 200,000 cylinders. We cannot send one out.
This was the situation with the APEP Cylinder Manufacturing Company, one of the companies under Government One District One Factory located at Ewutu Breku. The company was limping badly when the thought of shutting it down became very imminent. Chief executive of the company was distraught, broken, and felt all hope was lost. But today, the narrative has changed.
Following your documentary recently on the challenges that we were faced with, by the grace of God, as you speak, the markets have started responding. Your documentary got the government to take some actions, and as we speak, now the pricing levels have come to a normal level, and so we are all playing in the field.
The workers are busy putting metals on metals to produce the cylinders.
The information I got was that the president himself saw the documentary and he wasn't happy at all about what he saw. So immediately he tasked some officials in government to ensure that the issues are resolved. And as we speak, not completely resolved, but at least to the extent that we are now able to enter the market and do our business, I think we are on course. They've also lined up a number of things they are working on our behalf.
The CEO, Philip Asifo, couldn't thank Joy News enough for producing the documentary that has changed a situation that affected the economies of the local community.
So Joy News once again gets results. And that's how we end today's edition of the Midday News, live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, in Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM. On myjoyonline.com, there's more. Charles Bisu secures injunction to halt OSP arrest. We've been hearing also from the OSP on this, that they do not need that warrant. They can arrest without a warrant any person it's reasonably suspect of having committed corruption or corruption-related offences. There's more on myjoyonline.com. Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil is up next. Please do stay. I am Emefa Apawu. Have a good afternoon.